Hello and welcome back to Galgorm Hall for this June update for 2019. Now you will have noticed that I haven't put out an April or indeed a May update, and there's a bit of a reason behind that. I have been concentrating quite a bit on completing the scratch build series, and it did take up quite a bit of my time, but in between that I was carrying out with other work on the layout. However, I just didn't feel that there was enough to put it together into an update to show you. So I've sort of taken the decision that rather than putting out these monthly updates where I maybe feel a little bit pressured to try and get some content done for it, I'm just going to put them out as and when they're ready to go. It won't mean that I'm going to be slowing down my output of videos. I hope not to. I do have the next few videos planned out, I think, but in terms of the actual updates on the layout, I'll just bring them along as and when. So they may well come once a month, they might be every couple of months. Indeed, if I get an awful lot of work done, I could put them out every couple of weeks. So it's just a little bit of a change of tack for me with regards to those the outputting of those videos. With regards to this update, I am looking at two aspects. The first is on the roads down at the branch line. If you remember in one of my previous videos, I had started actually laying the bedding for that using the grey tile grout, and it's finally time to get those weathered and finished off so that they can be basically what it does is it opens up a whole new area of opportunities for me to get that area of the layout sort of completed from a scenic point of view. The roads were holding me back. I needed to get them done first, but by doing that now allows me to start working on the static grass and the shrubbery and that down there, and indeed I've actually started doing that in this last week or so, and it's brilliant. It really is lovely just to get to see some greenery appearing on the layout, and I will be covering that in a future video. The other aspect that I'm looking at is the storage yard. I think again I spoke about in a previous update. The work has started and that. It's a wee bit stop-start. I'm kind of having to work at it during the day whenever the kids are outside playing or whatever. In the evening time whenever they're in bed, it's not so easy. So I have the framework more or less done for that, and it is covered in this update as to how far I've got on that. So it's still very much a work in progress, but at least some movement has been made. What else has been happening since I last spoke to you? I got a year older in May, and in doing so, as is almost a tradition now, a new logo has appeared within the fleet, and I'll show you that in a future video. I'm hoping to do a little bit of a running session in a couple of weeks time, and I'll feature it at that point there. So that really just leaves me to say once again, thank you very much for your support, your subscription. Thank you to those who have all come on board since my last update, and I really do hope that you enjoy tonight's episode. Oh, one other thing before I go. It's a little bit early to be saying it, but I've booked my tickets for Worley. Well, I haven't bought my Worley tickets as yet, but I have bought my flights, and I'm coming in on the Sunday morning and leaving that same evening again, but I really can't wait. It's going to be my first time at the show. I'm not really sure what to expect, to be honest, but I think whatever happens, I'm going to have a really good day. We'll talk about that a wee bit nearer to the time, and hopefully be able to organise hooking up with some of you guys whenever I'm over there, but it's in the pipeline and I'm coming over. So right, look, that's enough waffling for now. Like I say, enjoy the update, and I'll chat to you again soon. Alright, see you for now. Bye. Remember back to a couple of months ago in one of my updates, I had started applying a plaster skim to the card surface, which was going to act as the base coat basically for those roads. So tonight what we're going to try and do is to enhance that a little bit and to make them a little bit more lifelike. Now essentially what we are going to be using are two products, and they're both from the Humbrol weathering powders range, and we're going to be using 16421 Dark Earth and 12605 Smoke, and with a combination of some templates, a little makeup brush and a fine paintbrush, we're going to try and bring out some of the effects that you would see on the roads across the UK. Okay, so first of all, what we want to do is to get some of our weathering powders onto a bit of kitchen tile, and that will just give us somewhere to work at them and to brush off any excesses that we don't want. Right, with both those powders on now, the first stage we will look at with regards to the weathering is some patchwork on the actual roads. Now I've taken a sheet of paper, and basically what I've done is I've cut out holes in it essentially, that will act as a template and will allow us to take some of the smoke coloured ash, or sorry, the smoke coloured powder, and brush it in to place. Now start off light first of all, and you can always build it up. It's easier adding this than it is taking it away. And all I'm doing is dabbing it on with that brush. And if we lift that off, you can see, hopefully, that we've got quite a distinct difference in colour between the original plaster and this here. And just by using your finger, much like you would be working with you know, chalk pastels and that, you can just sort of help blend it all through a wee bit. Now I'm going to do another one just here, and I haven't chosen any particular pattern with regards to these. Trying to avoid just sort of the standard square or rectangle, just to add a little bit of extra interest to it. And the darker you would apply your smoke weathering powder onto this, would sort of indicate the fresher tarmac having been laid and patched up. Okay, so that one's a lot stronger than the other one. Again, we can soften that a little bit just with the finger. Now with the what's that, the brown one, what's that one again, the Dark Earth, what we're going to do now is try and run very lightly just along the edges of the road, and what that's doing is indicating, particularly on country roads where the grass meets the road, you tend to get that soil leaching out onto the roadways whenever it's wet, and then once dry it tends to dry a little touch of brown. We'll do the same on the other side. And I'm trying to keep it sort of overlapping with the plaster bandage that was initially put down for the terrain. So one will blend into the other, and then whenever the grass and all goes down, it should all hopefully naturally blend in. We're not looking to overdo it, we're just looking to add little hints, and then we can also do the same down the centre. We'll try and keep that as central as we can from where the cars will pass through, and the wheels don't sort of clear that bit of the road. Okay, so with that on, we can also add a little bit of black. The smoke certainly down the centre of the road. And just try and blend that in as well. Now if you find that you think you've gone a bit too heavy on it, a very fine emery sandpaper will help just sort of lift some of that, and we can soften that a little bit more. Okay, so that is really the effect, and you just build that up until you're happy. And then one other thing you can do is with that very fine paintbrush and just the lightest bit of smoke weathering powder added onto it, you will find, let me see if I can bring you in closer here. Now hopefully you can see just along here, this little line is a natural crack line that is developed whenever applying the sandpaper, and just by ever so slightly dampening the tip of your paintbrush and dipping it into that smoke powder, we can follow that line and any others going off it, and it will represent any sort of deterioration in the road. And I think it's this little piece at the end here, just whenever you do that sort of bit to the roads, that really just sort of brings it to life. Up until then, even with the powders, I find that it's still quite flat looking. hopefully you're getting to see some of this. I'm not sort of following the camera at the minute. And certainly along the edges there are a lot more where the plaster, you know, I maybe haven't smoothed it out, but that works absolutely perfectly, because obviously most of your fault lines on the road will occur towards the edges, where it meets the natural landscape. And I'm not trying to follow those lines absolutely perfectly or to give it a solid line. It's more just a representation. So with the road surface more or less done, and I'm happy with it, the last little bit that I want to do is to add a little white line, dotted line around this corner. Now with this layout being set sort of mid-60s, road markings weren't prolific on national roads, and certainly in the countryside they were even less so, but because this is on quite a sharp bend, there's a junction here, I feel that there's a need to at least put some sort of warning markings, essentially is what they are for drivers turning that corner. So as you can see there, I have masked it out using Tamiya masking tape, and it's roughly, each gap is about 1 centimetre wide. I have no idea whether that is sort of the correct spacing or not, but I could have been doing a wee bit of research, and it's very difficult to find stuff from that era other than going to old highway codes, to which I don't have access to. So we'll just go with it as it is. It will be a representation if it's not 100% right. So what we're going to use is a little bit of a sponge, and I'm trying to curve it up so that we get no edges to it, and I'm going to just dip that into some white acrylic paint, and I have a wee bit of an offcut of plastic here, because I want to take most of the paint off that I can. And then we're just going to build it up, and hopefully what that will do is to give us enough of a line without it being a completely solid one. And if it's more solid in places, that's fine, and less so in others. It just gives that sort of worn, broken up appearance that you would get on most line markings unless they've just been done. Right, I think that'll do that. What we can do is we'll peel that off now for the big reveal. I think that's not bad. The line spacings are maybe a little bit wide on it looking at it there, but I think I could live with that quite well. Now hopefully that white will soften down a little bit once dried, but yeah, I think that'll work well. I don't think I'll do a line here. I probably should do a double line, but like I say, it's a country road, so I think I can get away with it just being one little single warning line on that corner. Right, we are down at the far end of the layout. This is the bridging point between what will be Galgorm Hall on this side and the branch on that side there. And if you remember from my last update video, I was talking about fitting a storage line or a storage yard in behind this back scene here. The plan being for the layout is that I will have 4 or 5 fixed rate trains which I can just pull onto the layout at any point that I want, run them round, take them back off again and allow something else to come out. I really don't have the space to allow for a standard sort of version of a fiddle yard, you know, where you come in one side, park in your road, you can cross over to the other tracks and come out the other side as if you've reappeared, you know, all that kind of thing there. So this is really probably the best that I've got, and I have discovered that having even just a couple of trains like these on the line at the minute, well, it just blocks everything up for if I want to run something else. So I have to either pull it off, set it on the floor somewhere, put it in the side of the layout, and I don't want that in the long term. So before we look at doing too much in the way of scenics in around this area, and it's a quiet day in the house, the kids are out, and I just got a wee bit of time to myself, I thought I'd try and make a start in this and talk through the process as we go. Hopefully you can see down at this end here I have a curved right hand point, and as it stands at the minute, the way I had originally laid the track in that corner in terms of the radius, it sits in perfectly. So all I'm going to have to do is cut out a little bit of the flexi either side of that and set that down in there. This track will then spur off, and we need to cut a hole in the back scene here so that the track can then run in beyond and onto the other side. Now on the floor, let me take you off here. So on the floor there we have a couple of sheets of ply. These have been lying in the garage for ages. They were actually using another project where I built a farm for one of my sons, and these were left over. So those are 11 inches wide, and I'm just going to make that do. Whatever track I can get onto that, whether it be 3 roads or 4, that's going to be my storage area. I mean, I could try and creep out and get a wee bit more, another couple of inches here and there, but you know, at the end of the day, if it's going to give me one more road, that's it. So this is what I'm working with. The full length of that is in 2 pieces, and the full length of that is 8 feet, which in terms of this area here, if we look at that point there, just where this section of baseboard finishes, to right the way down here to where the scratch build is and the end of the scenic board there, that is 8 feet. So those 2 sheets of wood will do absolutely perfectly to go in here. So here's a closer look of that curve point on the track. As you can see, it's going to come off to the left, and if I try and pan the camera around, I am going to take a piece of track and feed it in there, and we need to cut a hole through this here, big enough to allow a train to go through at a fairly shallow angle, so it probably will need to be quite a large hole. And I also have to bear in mind that I've got this joist right behind, so I can't actually start any point work until I get beyond that. So it's one of the reasons why I'm going to move the curve point right up to this point here, because as soon as I enter this, basically cross over this section of the baseboard here, I can start laying my points out in that sort of ladder effect to get the maximum amount of storage roads. Even if I start the first point here, what we've basically lost a foot, and I probably can lose another foot to enable myself to store a 6-coach train, which in itself is approximately 6 feet in length, and that will still give me a wee bit of leeway for storage. And then each of the other sidings will just sort of get slightly reduced, so it might be a 5-coach train, a couple of 5-coach trains, and maybe a 4-coach train as the final one. You know, at the end of the day, I've only got limited space to work with here. I can't bring out sort of the curve of that point work out any further unless it's a really sharp turn because of this joist here. So again, it's basically I've just got to work with what I've got here. So if I get a pen and we'll mark out the opening of this this baseboard, and then I can take it away and get it the jigsaw in through it. So just to allow me a little bit of leeway in case I do want to change the point work slightly, we'll start the opening there, and this is where it probably gets to be a bit of a guesstimate really. I would think we're probably just going off screen here on the camera, and we need to put it there too. But I can leave that as a large opening like that. If we don't need as much as that, I can place something in front of it to disguise. To be honest, I don't know what I'm going to do down here to disguise this hole. At the end of the day, we just need to get it in there to get the point work and the fiddle yard in. So let's have a look and see. So we probably want the height of this to be approximately 70 mils to allow clearance for the trains, and 70 here. And then if I run a line along there, I've basically created a letterbox that I will now cut out, and then we can put it back into place. So that is the hole into the base, or into the back seam. There's no going back now, is there? I've cut it, so I may as well get on with it and do the rest. I think what I'll do next is I'll install this point. That way then I can get the exact sort of track geometry coming off here, so I can work out what my points, where my points are going to go in behind. If I take this tape measure and run it along, that's the 2 foot mark along this section. As long as I can get trains part, and whenever I'm talking trains I mean sort of basically room for a 6 coach and a train, which is 6 foot in length. I need to my point work to finish here on at least 2 of the lines. I think 2 of them can sort of stagger up a wee bit, because that'll still allow for a 5 coach train, but I need point work to go in here, and I think that's fine, because if this comes off here and I start my first point right at the point where it's going to go in, I don't think I'm going to motorize these points, or I think it will just be a manual job, because it's going to be something that's used only to bring the trains on and off. And even if I do sort of set up points for them, I can do a surface mount point motor and the likes of this one, which is going to be bridging sort of what do you call it, supports in underneath. So if I was to put my first point there, well, I mean, that's given me, and it feeds off right against the baseboard on the other, or on the back seam on the other side. Well, look, I mean, that's giving me 6.5 feet of storage just for that one. And then you stagger it off, and the next one you're probably at the 2 feet. The next one is probably 5.5 feet of storage, and the final one 5 feet. You couldn't be bad at that, could you? So we'll get this point in next, and maybe I'll video it. Do you want me to video it? Maybe I will video it just to show it going in. There's loads of them there on the internet, on YouTube. But even if I did it in a sort of wee time-lapse one, I'll do that, and then I can start looking at the baseboards behind. Okay, this is probably going to run and run over the next couple of updates, but do you know what, at least I've made a start now. I like that. It's it feels like progress. Right, just before I make that cut for the curved point to go in onto the main line, I just thought I'd show you a couple of the points now in place. Well, you know, roughly as to where they're going to be. So we have got two short right hand turnouts, and one is connected directly obviously to the curved point. And then if we take you over to the other side, you can see just about, hopefully in this light, the other right hand curved point turnout. Now I've already checked the clearances against the entrance in through the back sign, and everything's fine for a coach. And as you can see from that there, we're already entering two roads for these 2 points here. So I think what I'll do is I'll buy another two right hand points, one to essentially go here, maybe with just a little short short piece of flexi, just, you know, to bring it forward a little bit, and then a further one just beyond that, and that should give me 5 roads into the storage yard. Now at this where this little screw is here, that basically marks from here, sorry, let's pan you down here, right down to where the corner of the layout is 7 feet, and my 2 points, my 2 initial points end before that screw mark even begins. So what that essentially means is that those 2 roads closest to the back scene will give me a 7-foot storage road, which is more than enough to stock a logo plus up to 6 carriages. So I couldn't be happier with that, and I think the fact if I can get 5 roads in altogether, I think we'll be doing alright with that. So just thought I'd show you that. Next job will be to get that point fitted now that I'm happy with the formation of the track going off that. Okay, so as you can see in the top left hand corner there, I haven't done that point yet, but what I have done is start making headway with the actual framework for the supports. Basically, it turned out that it was very difficult to get any sort of access in behind here. I'm essentially having to do everything from the layout side of the room. You can see just there at the bottom, that's the water tank for the house, so it really sort of makes any sort of access or maneuverability in there fairly limited. So what I've ended up doing is, you'll see a long beam of timber running down this side. That's screwed on to the existing basework. There's then cross supports that are running right the way down it, some of which are then screwed onto the joist for additional support. And then down here I have one piece that goes down to the floor, and in actual fact the whole structure is as rigid as anything. I wouldn't want to sit on it, mind you know, but it's going to do the job for what it's needed. You'll see there in the background that I have the 2 sheets of wood. I'm going to put them in place for you just so you can get an idea as to actually the space that I have. So I'll be right back with you. Okay, so if we look just at where the track is going to enter and exit from the layout, the curved point is in, and then we have 4 short right hand points that will feed the track off. And as you can see, the baseboard's been cut in around the joist, and then if I swing it round this way here, it goes down the other end and round that joist too. Now that is the only issue that I have with it. What I will be able to do is put a road down the right hand side of that joist and 3 to the left of it, and it will leave me 1 short road that can run up to that beam there. It's not ideal, it's really only going to serve to put maybe a couple of, well, I suppose it could put a couple of logos in without any sort of fixed rates to them, or maybe a couple of DMUs, but I'm just trying to maximize the space that I have available to me, and I might as well use that space to get me another piece of track in there. So it's getting there. There's still an awful lot of work to do. Obviously I need to get the track in. I actually need to buy some more flexi track too. I need another 6 lengths of it to complete this project, but on the whole I'm really happy to even get to this point here. The framework's the slowest bit probably to get done, trying to get it all measured up correctly and that. So hopefully in the next update we'll have a little bit more progress on this, and perhaps it'll even be done and trains will be off the layout.